in terms of how these animals are growing, the mantle tissue, which lines the inside of the shell, which is sort of the outer tissue, protects the organs as well. The shell is secreted around the entire margins of the mantle. So these animals are growing radially, the oldest part of the shell being the earth and beaks, and then each year they're laying a new shell around this area as they grow. So they're getting larger in all dimensions at one point in time. And it is in fact that mantle tissue, that mantle that lays down the lure, lays down the shell that develops into the lure in those species which use the lure to bring in their host for reproduction. And so what they will do is have a specialized portion of the mantle, and sort of along the ventral margin of the shell, just behind where the siphons are, in front of where the foot would come out. And the female will roll onto her back, and then the lure will protrude from the two valves, and she'll use that to attract her host.
So one of the important points here is that all mussels have a mantle,
Yes.
and it's fundamental to their growth mechanism.
Right.
A few have had a modification of that structure for use in a second function, which is to attract the host for their larvae.
That's exactly.
They're not currently displaying, but we've got some females that we've put in the water here to
Yeah, I mean, there's
look
the
at.
female pocketbook over here is not really displaying for us today. The female black sandshells have that white finger-like lure out, and they have a lure that doesn't really mimic anything. Whereas the pocketbook and the other members of the genus Lampsilus have these lures that to varying degrees mimic fish. And in those cases, you'll have something like the fat bucket that just has a mantle projection that's just simple unpigmented tissue that probably attracts a lot of different hosts to it, whereas something like the pocketbook has a more complex lure that has an eye spot and some fins to it, and then you go something like the wavy ray lamp mussel that has a very complex fish lure with eye spots and lateral line pigmentation and all sorts of things going on, and probably triggering different responses in the fish that are acting as hosts, and then other species like the rainbow, which mimics a crayfish. So again, you're going to target specific species of fish there that are preying upon juvenile crayfish, and so there is probably we see, for example, those more complex lures are typically on species that are able to use fewer and fewer different species of hosts as hosts that they're able to transform on. So there's some degree of that going on. There's something like the quadrulas, which are using catfish as hosts, and we think there might be an olfactory cue to those lures as well. So visually, just a small blip on the mantle, but they may be triggering other cues in their hosts other than simply visual cues. A lot going on.
But you can see something of a range in complexity. It sounds like even within a genus.
Where the eastern pond mussel will stand upright. So the black sandshell unburrows herself and lies flat. The eastern pond mussel stands upright, and the mantle has a characteristic pulsing, just a small little up and down. And I mean, the suggestion is that it's mimicking something like an amphipod. So that might be the response that's trying to get to draw the fish host in. But two very different, one orientation is important. It's not simply displaying the lure.